Nice. Okay, then I think we waited now for a couple of minutes. Let's jump in. Yeah, I mentioned it earlier today. We're here in this webinar to learn what you can do to make the life for the auditor a little bit easier, and your life then, of course, and how the spreadsheet that you might be using still in Excel, how this can be a disadvantage in an upcoming audit. To me, my name is Stefan. I just mentioned it earlier a little bit. I'm from Germany originally. Maybe you can hear it from my accent. I do live here in the Netherlands and work at AG5 for a little bit over a year now. And I'm an onboarding specialist. That means once a customer joins AG5, I will helping them to set up the system and to make sure that they know how to use it and to get all the data into AG5. A little disclaimer here at the beginning, of course, I'm not an auditor myself. I'm not a consultant, but we did have an interview with an auditor to prepare for this session and to prepare for this webinar. So the feedback that we got is legit, but again, I'm not an auditor myself. The session will last roughly 30 minutes. You can put questions into the chat because we have a Q&A afterwards that we can answer some of your questions already. The slides will be shared with you afterwards and a recording of the webinar too. Again, if you have any questions, just put them into the chat and then we can pick them up. So before we start, I want to ask to fill out a little poll. Please let me know what are your biggest challenges that you're facing while you're using spreadsheets for your skills management, how to track it, and maybe you got already feedback from an audit that happened. So it would be really nice if you can share some of the information with me and just click on those answers in that poll. Okay, nice. I can see some answers coming in already. Multiple versions floating around is a topic for people that we heard so far. Keeping the data accurate is also something that affects a lot of people, and that is very true, right? If you have multiple Excel sheets, you share them. Some people make a version 1 or version 2, and then it just gets super messy. So it makes sense that those are actually the two most mentioned topics here because they do go hand in hand. So what will you learn then during this webinar? We want to show you how you can get out of this spreadsheet. You can see it on the left side into a specialized software solution. In this case, it's ourselves here, AG5 on the side. But this webinar is general. So just what you need to be aware of if you want to use a software solution. The main mission from AG5 is to make your life easier. To put it simple, we want to make your skills management as easy and as comfortable as possible. You know, your workday is busy and stressful enough already, so why not go and make it easier where you can? And a big part, especially for regulated industries, is to keep the workforce up to date and the training and the certificates, everything in one place. So if you have an audit that you can easily show it and you can prove which employee was trained in what. And yeah, this is what we're specializing in. And that's our main mission. You can already see some of the bigger customers also at the bottom that we're working here. But the focus, of course, is on you today. And with this being said, let's jump right into the 10 ways how spreadsheets put your audit at risk and how we can make your life easier. So first of all is, of course, there's no digital trail, right? So if you're sharing the spreadsheet with your team and you want to add results in there, you don't know exactly when was a result added, when was something achieved, when was which employee trained. So this just gets super complicated to keep track of. And if somebody wants to see the certificate for an employee, then you always have to go to another place and search for it. And yeah, so this is something that a software solution can easily do, ideally, of course. And yeah, the second part is the one that was mentioned at our poll in the beginning. We have no version control. I can share the Excel sheet with one of the team members or with the manager from a specific team. Maybe they want to do some changes, they just update it in their own sheet, and then they forget to send it back to me. And all of a sudden we have, instead of one sheet with some data, we have already two sheets or two files, right? And this can spread through the whole company, through all kinds of teams, and all of a sudden we have so many different versions and different sheets that we just do not know which one is the most current one. And yeah, so this is something that gets talked about a lot, that we do not know which version is the most accurate and the up-to-date one. And if we have one solution, one software solution where everybody can just log in and fill out their data, then of course this problem wouldn't exist anymore, and it makes your life so much easier. We also have a problem in lack of standardization, and this is something I'm actually running into a lot in the onboarding with my customers, that even though we might have the version thing under control, but then you have, for example, specific job roles or specific names. Then one team maybe uses just the first name of the employee, and another team uses the full name or only the last name. You have maybe spelling errors, or some skills are described differently, and then all of a sudden it just gets super messy, and nobody knows which one is actually the standard and what is the current version. And if you have an auditor, he might ask you one or two times which skill is this on this sheet and is that the same skill in the other sheet. But as soon as they have to ask a third or fourth time, they're just going to fail you and say, no, I need to see on one glance which one is the correct skill, which one is the employee, and when and how did they get the certificate. So standardization is and data consistency, those are two really, really important topics. No set training requirements, of course, right? So if you want to have it easy and you want to have it automated, and you say, okay, somebody works as a specific or machine operator in our company, and we automatically want to assign them different requirements that they need to fulfill to be able to do that job. You can see here on the right side in the screen, the OSHA training guidelines actually ask you that or mandate that an employee get their training and their safety practice. So they have a mandate that there's a requirement set in place that an employee gets the training that they need to do their job. But it's just not easy to do simply with an Excel sheet. So yeah, this is something you can solve also with a software solution, that you can assign those skills and requirements to the system, and then you do not have a messy Excel sheet. There's also an issue with training approval processes, and yeah, so the certification, or if you want to send somebody in a training, maybe you always want to have the manager be able to approve something, or maybe you want to have a specific owner of a skill be able to approve a result or achievement in the system. In Excel, it's difficult to see who can approve what and why did they approve anything. You have a limited oversight of the people involved, and you cannot limit the access. So you can share the Excel file or the spreadsheet with somebody, and then they can see everything. It's really, really difficult to make the difference and in access rights, and to determine who needs to approve what specific thing on a sheet. That's simply not possible. And yeah, again, OSHA requires actually that a training program needs to be validated for the effectiveness. So ideally, you want to have something in place that makes sure that at least one other person maybe can approve the result or can approve the training and the qualification in the system. So on number 6 that we see here, we have no method of data management and data approval. That goes a little bit hand in hand with the one that I mentioned beforehand already, the number 5 too. In a spreadsheet, you cannot see who can access what. You cannot limit the access. You cannot say, hey, the manager needs to approve a specific training. So if there's one spreadsheet floating around and the manager maybe shares it with the team member, then all of a sudden the team member can see all the data that is in that specific spreadsheet. So you're not only violating data protection laws, but you might be also sharing information that is not supposed to be shared, or risk that maybe those files get sent home, right? If an employee says, oh, I'm just going to update my file real quick at home, you just lose control of it. So you need to be able to set something in place that prevents this. And you need to be able to set an approval process into the system to determine who can add what specifically to that sheet. The next place is that there's no central place for proof of training or the certification. I mentioned it. So what you want to have, ideally, you want to have one place and one source of truth. So you want to go and see, hey, employee A was trained in a specific certification and a specific skill. He got a specific certification, and this is all the data I can pull out of the system. You also want to be able on one glance to see, hey, this employee, all the certificates and the trainings that specific employee got, but you will also want to see how this relates maybe to the whole team or even maybe to the whole company. So having one central place that collects all that information for you is, yeah, just makes your life so much easier. And you can see here on the right side, there's even a requirement set by an ISO standard that the records of the training and the qualification that they need to be compliant. And yeah, so you need to have a place where you can pull out that data and where it is accessible. Point number 8 that we can see here, there's no plan for approaching skill gaps. That's something that is really, really important and very helpful. Because the best example is first aid responder. Most of the time there's availability for that specific skill for a year, but also for specific machines that you need to be retrained, right? So you want to make sure that you can see on one glance who needs to be retrained when. How long is the skill valid? Can we send out emails or, right? So this is all those additional steps that a spreadsheet simply cannot do. In a spreadsheet, you will see, hey, this person is trained in that specific skill. But yeah, you want to be able to see for how long is this person trained, for how long is the certificate valid, when do I need to be thinking about a retraining, and yeah, so those are the things you cannot easily do in a spreadsheet. The next part here is you have no timely process to manage retraining. Again, if you have the validity that you can set into place, if a certification runs out today, most of the time you cannot simply say tomorrow, hey, you're going to be retrained now, and then it's okay, right? So you need to be able to plan ahead a little bit. You need to have a system in place that reminds you, hey, be aware, your specific training is about to run out. And this is something that a spreadsheet simply cannot do. And yeah, you can see here on the right side, for example, the European Agency for Safety and Health at Work. There's a specific framework that mandates the retraining and for a specific role and the safety trainings I just mentioned. And yeah, if you want to be retrained, of course, you need to know when something is running out. And ideally, you want to be reminded to have it as comfortable and as easy as possible. The next part, document management for the training. You want to avoid to have so many certificates from people that you would need to pull out and need to search for. If you have an audit, for example, in a specific department, you do not want to go to HR and search for the certificates on top of that. You don't want to start getting panic attacks and say, oh no, where's the certificate? Where can I see which employee was trained when? And this is something, the document management for the training, that you can easily do in a software solution and not in a spreadsheet. And on top of this, if you have, for example, a training that runs out, maybe there's an update, maybe a machine got a specific new update or a new function, and you need to be able to retrain people in it, then this is something that you can also not really do in Excel. You want to know you want to have a software where you can have different versions of different skills maybe, and that you can reset the requirements that they need to be trained in. It's also really nice because if you can gather all the training requirements, all the training documentation in one place, then it's easy accessible, right? And you can update this if needed. So now I talked about the different issues that you're running into. But now here we have a little bit of advice. And again, this is talked through with an auditor. So this is feedback that we got actually from somebody on the job, what we can do or what you can do to prepare for an audit. You will get the sheets and the recording afterwards, so you can, of course, read through all of them. I'm just going to pick one or two from here to discuss them. Skill or training gaps, right? So you need to ask yourself, how do you know where my current skill gaps actually are? How do I know which employee needs to be trained in what specific skill? And how do I know maybe even how my skill management and my level of training, how does this actually look maybe in 3 months, right? So if you have an auditor that says, hey, I'm coming in March, now it's December, then maybe we want to be able to look ahead somehow to see how my skills look at that specific point. Document management. What is the current SOP that employees are trained in? Which skill version are they proficient in? Do they need to be retrained in something? Is there an update in a specific skill or a specific machine that I need to retrain my employees, right? So those are things you can ask yourself while preparing for an audit. And then really, really important, of course, data integrity and data standards, but also data consistency to make sure is all the data complete? Is the data easy to understand for the auditor, right? And an audit is complicated enough. So if the auditor has to sit there and second guess every other skill, is this the correct one or is it not? Then, right, this is not ideal. And training requirements and training processes. How can you retrieve data during an audit? How can you easily show the auditor what your current skill level is of your workforce? But then also on top of this, you want to show the auditor where the certificates are and what training process and training material is in place, right? So this is all data that you have to prepare, and it's just super cumbersome if you have to prepare this all based on spreadsheets and based on different folders and maybe different data from different departments. So if we have one software solution that can do this all together in one step, it's yeah, it's just nice and easier to do. So enough talk about the theory. Let's jump into AG5 and I can show you a little bit around. So if you log into AG5, this is what you will see on the first glance. You can see this is now my my own demo account where I prepared a little bit of it. Let's see, we have an audit for the logistics teams here. So I can click on the logistics team 1, and then I can see in on one glance my team here. On the left side, I can see the skill set on the top side, and I can see here in the center the training level of my team, right? So I can see, for example, my colleague David is trained in this specific skill up to a level 2. And this is fine because he also only needs to be trained up to level 2 because you can see this little blue frame around it. If you would need to be trained to a higher level, then it would a little bit look like this skill here, where you can see the blue frame, and then that pie chart, that pie piece that is still missing of his level, this would be red. Of course, the amount of levels you can determine yourself, that's customizable. You can see here, for example, in this skill, this is just a simple achieved and failed, or this is a 3-level skill, but if you have, for example, language skills, then you might want to go up to level 6 or 5, depending what you want to do. And here on the right side, I can also see on one glance, be aware this employee is currently trained, but something is about to change. And if I click on that icon, I can see, hey, this is expiring soon. And the good part about this is that we can tie this into an automation in the system that an email gets sent out. So we can say, as soon as the skill that you have is about to expire, please send an email to your manager, send an email to the employee, or maybe send an email to an external email address, right? So those are things you can put into place. if the auditor now wants to see the certificate from the colleague here, from David or David, I can simply click on his name and go to his employee page. And then I have an overview of all the specific trainings that this employee achieved so far. Right, I can see here when he was trained. I can see when this training will be expiring. I can see here is the little bell icon for our warning that it's about to expire soon. Right, so this is a really nice and handy place to have an overview of the employee. And I can also see here under the attachments. Right, so we were talking about one place where you can find all the relevant data. So for example, we have here a direct attachments to the employee. That means this could be a certificate or something that the employee achieved before he joined our workforce. In this case, you got a driver's license, and that's not tied to any training we gave them or we gave him, and therefore it's just here an attachment to the employee itself. But if we then look a little bit more down here, I can see here got a certificate for French on A1. This is something he was trained while already in our workforce and on the job. And I can see for which skill it applies. For the language skill, French. So if we would now, for example, have an audit coming up in 3 months, right? We mentioned it earlier. We might have an audit in April or March. Then I can also open something in the so-called alert list. You can see this here on the top right corner with the little bell icon. Alert list means that there's a warning, there's something about to happen. So I can click here on the 3 dots and I can say, show me in my alert list. And now this filters all the alerts of the in the system based on that matrix that I wanted to look at. And then I can also change the period here. I can say I want to look ahead. Let's say I want to see how does it look in 4 months. And all of a sudden, from 28 problems, I went up to 30 problems, right? So I can super easy prepare for an upcoming audit and know what to do and know where to train before this happens. Yeah, so let me know if you have any questions in the system, in the chat, and then we can talk about it. Let's jump back into our little presentation that we have here. So, generally speaking, what features do you need to look for in a software solution? You want to have a look, you want to need to have a change log, right? So you want to see when was a specific employee trained in what. But on top of this, you also want to see when was something added to the system and by who. You want to know, right? You need to be able to trace back your steps. So you know who made specific changes into the system. You want to have ideally real-time data updates. So if I'm adding a result, I'm uploading a certificate, that the other team doesn't need to wait till the next day until it's visible in the system. You want to make sure that it's standardized, that all the matrices look the same. Right, so you can feed different data into a matrix, but you still want to make sure that the general look of the matrix is the same. So it doesn't matter from which department you're going to look at the matrix. You always understand, hey, here are my employees, here are my skills, and you have maybe a legend on the side that explains to you the different symbols. So this is something you want to have to make it easier to understand for everyone. You want to have the detailed employee profiles. I was just looking at the one from David. We saw that he was part of the logistics team. We saw his requirements. We saw his training results. So you want to have this all in one place and easily accessible. Streamlined training approvals. We can set up in AG5 a system that makes you approve specific results. But we can say, for example, that David can add his result by himself, but before it's actually showing in the system, we want his manager to look at it and approve it. Or we can also say we have a specific skill that is trained by somebody from your own workforce, and then we can make that person the owner of the skill, and then we want that this person maybe approves the result in the matrix. So this is something you want to be able to look at and to set up in the system. Same goes with a multi-person workflow. So let's say what happens if the manager is not there? What happens if the manager maybe is unavailable for a longer time? So we want to be able to have multiple people being involved in this approval process to make sure that nothing is lost and nothing is stuck somewhere in limbo. You want to have a centralized skills library. This is very important. You want to make sure that everybody is basing their skills management on the same skills. And yeah, so you can see here the different things. Proactive planning tool, you want to be able to look ahead into the system and you want to be able to plan something in the system. You can actually also plan within AG5 a training, and then you can also set up a workflow that an email gets sent out and say, hey, David, there's a new training for you planned in the system. And of course, the alert list, this is super important. That's the one that I showed you, where you can see how the skills management and the skills change over time. How does it look in 3 months, right? So this is something you want to see on one glance to make it easier to identify any issues or upcoming issues. Here's a question that I got from a participant. So there's somebody that wants to ask if they can see the results of the matrix changing over time. So what you can do then, of course, you can simply open the matrix in your alert list, and then you can look ahead, you can look back, you can change the time period in there. So this is something you can do and can see in the system. Yeah, this was already the I guess the start for our Q&A. If you have any questions, please put in the chat and then we can answer them. In the meantime, we have some common questions prepared that we get asked not only during the webinars, but also a lot during the onboarding and during the sales process. What kind of user access controls does AG5 offer? So you can really limit down the access. You can, for example, give employees only access to their own employee page, but you can also share specific matrix with the team lead, and then they can see only the employees in that matrix. Maybe let's jump back into AG5 real quick to have a look at it. So if David, for example, or David is logging in and he has only his viewing rights for his own employee page, as soon as he opens AG5, he would simply land on this specific page. And then we can decide, can he only view his data or can he actually also change his data, right? And then if you think again about the approval process, if we give them rights to change stuff, then we can always put in the fail-safe and say, hey, I want the manager to approve his data. But yeah, so this would be the employee viewing rights. If David would be now a team lead of that specific team from logistics team 1, then I could simply add them here as editor for that specific team. And what I'm doing in this case is that I'm give David access to all the data that is in that specific matrix. So they only will see those employees and he will only see those specific skills in the system here on top. Because this is its own very small team bubble where he's in. And then, of course, we can also do general access rights like an admin user. We can have a super user that can see everything into the system, but maybe cannot change stuff. And then you can also go, if you have a quick look here at the user rights at the bottom, here, user accounts. Right, so we can give admin rights, super user rights, and we can go and make a custom user where we can really drill down and say, hey, this user can only see that employees, he can only see specific skills, he can, right? So this is something that can be adjusted. Another common question is how does AG5 integrate with existing systems or processes? We do have, of course, the possibility to make it super easy with the CSV upload that can run every couple of hours or even every 5 minutes if you would want to. Most commonly, it's used every once per day. But we also have an API connection. So we can connect with all kinds of different software solutions already, with Workforce, for example, or with SAP. A lot of customers are using SAP-based software. Yeah, so there's actually a lot that we can integrate with. And even though, right, I shouldn't say it, but if there's something that we do not offer standardized as an integration, we always have a team of really creative developers that would help you solve that issue. How well can AG5 scale to accommodate our large number of employees across different locations? So this is a really interesting question, because there are actually two different approaches that we can go. First of all, we could simply put everything into one big repository, into one big system where the different locations then are mentioned, right? For example, if I click in this one, I have here different locations where I can assign different employees and different job roles if I would want to. However, there's also always the possibility to work with multiple systems, that you have one big global system that shares, for example, all the skills, all the requirements, all the employee names, and the whole organizational structure to the local repositories. And then they can, on top of this, also have some local additions maybe, but the big chunk of data is coming from the global one. So this is something that can be set up into place. And yeah, this is something we can accommodate, I'm gonna say, easily, because we have a lot of global customers, and yeah, they do use the system this way. Does AG5 support multiple languages? Yes, we just mentioned, right, global customers. We do have the possibility to have different languages. If I go here on the top right corner on my name, I can actually change it to a different language here. And yeah, so this is doable. That's no problem. Can AG5 provide instant updates on training statuses across different departments and projects? Yes. This is something that I was mentioning during what you need to look for in a software solution, right? You want to be able to see live updates easily and quickly. So yes, if somebody in, let's say in Japan, adds something into their own repository for specific training, and if the person then in Brazil looks at that repository, they're going to see instantaneous that there was a change, that there was something uploaded. So yeah, we can do this. Any other questions that you guys have? Okay, I don't see any other question coming in. Then yeah, of course, you will get again the slides in the video afterwards. You can book an intro session with one of our colleagues that explains to you how AG5 works. You can book a demo, but you can also go to our webpage and create a test account and see how that goes. Those are the possibilities. Here's the last slide is this one. I'm going to open a little questionnaire. Please let me know how helpful this webinar, how helpful you think this webinar is. I think in the chat now, and give us feedback. We're always very happy about feedback and critique. And yes, then again, I want to thank you all for participating in this webinar today. I wish you happy holidays, and I do hope that I maybe see one or two of you in upcoming onboarding next year. With this being said, I wish you all a really nice and pleasant day, and hope to see you soon. Bye bye.